always do a little bit of a jiggle.
And the beat drops.
No, it's like
Hello, welcome to Humble Brags and Shopping Bags, and welcome back. We are joined by a very special guest today, Daniel Small from Crop Shop Boutique, and many other professions and a long history of entertaining stories, as we've just been discovering in our chat pre-recording.
yeah, Daniel and I go way back. I don't even know when we first met, but when we were at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, Dan, you have to come on the show because you've just got such an interesting story, and in particular in e-commerce. But we just found out that you are a season 3 Big Brother alumni. That is way more interesting.
Who would have thought?
Thanks for having me. I've been waiting for the invite for some time now. So I'm glad I actually, to be clear, had to invite myself. But
Yes, always
nonetheless, I
welcome.
am now here in the chair.
Woohoo! We got there. It's
Yeah.
okay. We got there.
Exactly.
Anyway, Dan, I know your history, but most people won't. Talk to us and kind of give us a TLDR of where you're at now, but also I want to go into your backstory because I think it's a really interesting one and kind of gives perspective on the breadth and vastness of your career to date.
What's TLDR? Sorry.
Sorry, that's a shop.
Do
That
you
is
know
a
what it is?
very Shopify term.
Dan, do you know what TLDR is? Because
I should.
Okay.
Because I've
I
actually
don't.
used this term
Hey,
I was
before.
like,
okay,
what?
okay.
The
TL
load
so
down.
I actually don't know what it stands for.
Stop
you called
it.
me out.
Did you just say something you don't? I called you out.
My mum does that on text messages. She'll use acronyms. She has no idea what it means.
But here is something that, okay, so I don't know whether it's a Shopify term. I don't know whether it's a normal term. But at the start of if we have to go into depth around an explanation, we have to give a TLDR, which is if you only read the 3 or 4 sentence summary, you would understand the context and what
Is
is
it like
coming
top
next.
line something?
Yeah.
Just wait. You go and I'm going to Google it.
TLDR.
Whilst you
Yeah.
TLDR.
Look, I'll try and do this as quick as possible. It's a bit of a bounce around, so
It's okay.
throw
We've got
something
time,
or
and,
kick me.
you know.
So came straight out of high school with not necessarily the greatest idea of where I wanted to end up career-wise. I went through high school thinking I wanted to be a vet, believe it or not. But that changed for some reason. First year out of uni, I found myself in an arts degree, just doing a bit of everything to kind of
You're
try
one
and
of those
find what
one
I
of those
did or
arts kids.
didn't like. And then kind of bounced away for a couple of years and played around with the entertainment industry, as you touched on before. But when I came back, I found myself in an accounting cadetship, believe it or not, which was kind of like my foot in the door for my entire professional career. It was where I learnt to be on time, wear a tie, do what I was told, learn how to respect leadership. It was really like my first proper job, and I was terrible at it. I was good at the tasks of, this is the task, sit down and do it, but was probably really bad at all the other things I just mentioned around being on time, having your tie, all that sort of stuff.
I mean, you're on time today, so you've clearly learned something.
Involved.
And so, but I had this great love for being right. And data's always right. So one thing I loved about accounting was you kind of got to the answer. And I think I spent about 3 years in that cadetship. I can still remember I was earning $28,000 a year, and I was doing uni 3 nights a week and then working at General Pants on the weekend on Saturdays and Sundays at Erin Affair. And so life was pretty busy. And it got to the point where it's just a little bit too much. The accounting firm wasn't right for me. And believe it or not, I became a tree lopper. And a bit of a pivot, a real pivot, yes. And I spent 6 months doing tree lopping with a buddy and realised I needed to get back into the workforce. And so I got a job selling home loans with Commonwealth Bank.
I can't.
Again,
I
random,
can't.
I know, a bit of a jump. I went from accounting, tree lopping, selling home loans. And I loved it because it was with Bank of Western Australia at the time, was just rolling out across Australia and had this really new way of doing banking, which was they had no privacy screens. All the staff were out on the floor. Someone greeted you at the front of the store. And I actually, it really resonated with me. And I think if I look back on it now, that new way of doing things actually planted a seed that I've probably only realised now how valuable that experience has come in, which is that rapport that you need to build with someone in an instant, in your body language, in your tone. And loved it, was quite good at it, worked my way up from selling homelands to actually being an assistant branch manager, which was pretty rad for a 25-year-old to be doing that. There weren't many other 25-year-olds as assistant branch managers at the time, so I kind of felt like I was king of the castle and got a bit of a reality check when I had a bit of a falling out with my area manager at the time, and some of those not being on time, not having the right type, maybe some of those things were boiling to the surface again. And anyway, long story short, I think I did about 3 years in retail banking and realised that it probably wasn't long-term going to open the doors career-wise that I wanted to. And was fortunate enough to get a job with Macquarie Bank. So jumped from retail banking into investment banking and loved it because it was, I guess, the pinnacle of brand in that space. You know, Macquarie Bank was the most established and most respected investment bank in the country. And I loved it. I was around people that were so much smarter than me. And every day I went to work, I was just soaking it up. And I could just feel myself getting more professional, smarter. While I was there, I studied my master's in finance. So I was just sponging it all up and was really, really lucky to jump from the analytics side of the business, where I was kind of reviewing business's creditworthiness, over to the account management side, where I was just actually looking after the clients. And I loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is dream job. You know, I'm working in finance, using my degrees, but I've got this interaction with clients. So I thought, this is it. And then one day I read a story about an ex-investment banker who started Surf Stitch. And I can remember reading it at the time thinking, I like surfing because I've surfed my whole life. I've worked in investment banking.
This is a tree lobbing moment.
Yeah, why can't I do that? And I can remember that day I actually had my wisdom teeth out and I was sitting at home on the couch, completely high as a kite on the pain meds. And I wrote an email to the founder of Surf Stitch, but I didn't have his email address. So I literally had to guess every single email. So it was Justin at Surf Stitch, Justin.Cameron, Justin _ guessed every possible permutation of his email. And I can remember sending him an email and saying, hey mate, you know, I read your story. I'm amazing at what I do. I think Surf Stitch would be, like, I was so cocky. I was still so young. And kind of thought nothing of it. And then about a week later, I got this phone call from somebody in France saying, hey, can you fly to Queensland for an interview? And I couldn't remember sending the email.
No, because you were high.
So I was sitting there thinking, I guess
Classic.
I can come to Queensland for an interview. Classic Dan. Yeah. I guess I can come to Queensland for an interview. Anyway, so I flew up. 2 weeks later, I'd moved my whole life to Queensland.
Wow.
I was in a long-term relationship at the time, had spent, you know, almost 10 years in finance at this point, working myself up to this incredible job. And my leaders at Macquarie was incredible. I still remember the head of the team I was in, and he's still one of the most exceptional people I've ever worked for. So I felt like I was in a safe place, but there was this draw to Surf Stitch. There was something incredible about online. And it was all because I'd actually ordered something online and it arrived like a day later. And I can just remember being blown
Back
away.
then
Like,
as well, yeah.
how can something be with me so quick? And at the time, there was no one better at fulfillment and customer experience than Surf Stitch. And so, you know, they were the absolute leader in the space. They were winning Pure Play Retailer of the Year. They were winning Aureas. And so for me, I was like, I've just landed at the most phenomenal place. And then spent a number of years there, really lucky to grow with that organisation because it went through incredible growth. Justin Cameron was so far ahead of the industry in terms of the things he wanted to do at Surf Stitch. I can remember still the day he came into the office and said, everybody, mobile will be the future. And I was so focused on desktop at the time, I was like, you're so wrong. I'm just going to keep focusing on the desktop side because of how good it looks. And he was right, obviously. But just working for someone that was always pushing for that next big thing. And then the organisation grew really, really quickly. We had a new leader come into the business who was exceptional, who I've still got a working relationship with today, Justin Hilberg. He really kicked out of me those kind of, I guess, childish isn't the right word, but those
Tree loppers.
that
tree lopper.
he kicked the tree lopper out of me, but just he's one of the most professional people I've ever met, and learning from him, you know, how to navigate situations and really get what you want out of them, as opposed to going in like a bull in a china store and reacting emotionally. And so I loved working with him and at Surstitch. And then opportunity came up at the building next door, which was Billabong. And Billabong had an early investment in Surstitch. So it was, and we actually, the Surstitch employees actually used the Billabong coffee shop. So I felt like I was still at home. I didn't, my commute to work was the same. I almost parked in the same spot. So spent sort of 4 or 5 years at Surstitch, loved it, jumped to the building next door at Billabong. It was going through a very up and down phase. It had just been acquired by Boardriders, and they're like two arch enemies. It'd be like Nike buying Adidas, right? So all of a sudden under this one roof, you had all these people that had spent the last 20 years of their life going to work to kill each other.
Yeah.
And so the politics were significant. The scale of the job to rationalise that tech stack was significant. So navigated that for about 3 years. And then this opportunity came up at Culture Kings. And that's probably the moment I would say that from a career perspective, my life's changed forever. Getting to work directly for Simon and Tani Beard is, without a doubt, probably the thing that I'll look back on when I'm 60 and go, that's what changed my life. Wherever I end up, it will be because of that decision to work at Culture Kings. Probably even more so, I think, than jumping from finance to Surstitch.
Yeah, interesting.
And what was your role at Culture King?
So I started as head of ecom, and at that point, I think the ecom was a team of 2. So they were a well-established retailer that, in my opinion, do retail better than anyone. They completely owned the space of experiential retail. Like you walk into those stores and you feel something.
I think it's just the loud music vibrating inside of you.
It is, but,
one
but even that is a very conscious decision
100%.
that Simon and Tani made.
Yeah.
And they knew that if you're in this space where your emotions are heightened and you feel connected to a culture, you're going to spend.
Yeah.
And the learnings I had in my time at Culture Kings was just, I would go as far to say that 3 years there was probably equivalent to 10, 15 years prior, without a doubt.
Yeah, wow.
That's a massive
And
statement.
so that team grew from 2 to 80 while I was there.
2 to 80.
Yeah, and look, it was probably more because the role started absorbing other departments.
So not just ecom?
Yeah, so eventually it picked up ecom, marketing, the photo studio, customer experience, and the front end tech stack. So the way we looked at it was any digital conversation with the customer was my responsibility. And then towards the end, that also grew to just pick up marketing in general. So all of the in-store activations. And in saying that, the team there was exceptional. So my role was less about coming up with the ideas of what the amazing things are to do and more about supporting the incredible people that were already there and just trying to find that, I guess, process flow between the teams and just make sure that there weren't any silos or information gaps, and worked with so many exceptional people there that it was just an absolute dream. And they were then acquired by an equity group out of the US, and I would go as far to say they kind of sucked the magic out of the brand a little bit, because it went from being this owner-founder-led, fast-paced, make a different decision every 5 minutes, but, you know, as soon as you get that 55, 60% confidence, chase it, go for it, to being, and rightfully so, to being far more planned and all of a sudden we had to worry about really rigid budgets and profit loss, and we're an entity on the New York Stock Exchange, and so you have to behave differently. And I think the special sauce at Culture Kings was just that crazy chase the moment culture that we had there, and so made the decision to leave there just over 12 months ago, and have found myself working in a group of brands on the Gold Coast called Move With Us and Crop Shop Boutique. The Move With Us brand is now where 100% of my time sits, which is this incredible community-based women's fitness app that is probably the most community-connected brand I've ever worked at.
Yeah.
So very exciting. I'm very, very up and down, few circles, back and forth, and every role's offered me something very different.
I think so firstly, we'll touch on a bit of the learnings that you had in each role, because there's so many themes that I just want to pull out of you for a second. But for anyone listening, I think that, Daniel, your story is the perfect example of how career trajectory is not linear.
No.
Right? It's okay to not know what's next, and it's okay to be intuitive and go with gut feel based on what you think is going to be a role or career change or career step. Because I think I really resonate with how you kind of went from one end of the corporate spectrum to a totally other one, and that was really instinctual for you, I feel.
Yeah, I knew that wearing a suit and tie and catching a bus to the city and sitting in an office and working in finance was not for me.
Yeah.
But I'd invested so much into my uni degrees and my time that I almost felt like I had to stick with it. And I think it almost took that moment where my barriers were down a little bit to kind of throw myself at it. I easily could still be working in that industry right now, but yeah, and look, it was the early days of e-com too. So I can remember I've got a bit of one of my dad's mates, he's kind of the person I flush all my decisions through before I pull the trigger. He's very good at, slapping me over the head and saying, no, don't be silly. And I can even remember talking to him and him saying, look, I'm pretty sure things will go in the direction of online one day. And it's like, I had no idea then that things would be the way they are now. So it was not a educated decision at all.
Yeah.
It was completely passion and emotion driven.
But I love that, because I think it will resonate with a lot of listeners in terms of where they're at in their career. So I just wanted to highlight and pull that out. But let's just kind of go back a step, because ultimately you did start off in the industry at a stage where it was in its infancy. It was a new thing. Technology wasn't quite there to be able to support what brands such as Surfstitch were wanting to do. What have you seen change that has fundamentally shifted and accelerated e-com? What are the trends that you think were the most foundational?
I think there's been a few distinct phases to e-com. I think in the beginning, everyone had this attraction to the idea of personalization and conversion rate optimization. They were these big words that I heard people say all the time at conferences, and I don't feel like anywhere I've ever worked, anyone's nailed those things.
Yeah.
I think when you're in a peer group and you let your guard down, it's quite comforting to figure out that, actually no one's got this stuff figured out, but it's just that first mover or who's got that competitive advantage. And so I think in the beginning for me, e-com was its goal was to try and actually build trust from the customers. And trust initially came from you get it quickly, a good returns policy, someone answers the phone if you call them. And so I think the businesses that dominated at first developed that trust with people. What was happening in the background was more interesting though, which was the first generation of people growing up with mobile phones. So I didn't get my first mobile phone till year 12. So for me,
late bloomer.
Yeah, I had an inability to engage with the internet in this device in my pocket. For me, it was, MSN at lunchtime in the library, asking people for their ASL, age, sex, and location. Daniel, 16 Avoca Beach.
Yeah,
and so
good old days.
for me, the internet was very different. I used Yahoo. Google came later.
Yeah.
And I still remember the moment when I was an accountant and I found Facebook for the first time. So these huge things that the new generation have been like, they've never not known them to exist. They came to life while I was on my e-com journey. So I think it's more about the cultural shifts that were happening in the wings while e-commerce was growing a little bit older. And I think content and social media is what changed it forever. So in the beginning, you know, smaller brands weren't doing their own online thing. It was really just the big retailers like the Iconic and Sir Stitch, people that had that width of offer and fulfillment sorted. And then I think, you know, Instagram came along and changed everyone's...
Change the game.
I think completely. And from that point on, I think people that stayed focused on conversion rate optimization have fallen behind, and people that are focused on content have kept up.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me is the clearest kind of distinction when businesses stop worrying about fulfillment, customer service as their point of difference, and it became content. And I think businesses that had their content dialed were able to take advantage of Facebook more than anyone. And I think it's no secret that, you know, pre-iOS 14 and 15, anyone that had their Facebook game sorted out, which I'm thankful every day that I spent time with Simon understanding the value of that. I never got to the point where I understood it to the detail of him at all, or could, you know, go in and create a campaign as well as him at all. But understanding the value of that thing will stay with me forever. And if you look at all the organisations doing well now, they had an A-grade content and performance game.
Yeah. I hope you don't mind me telling this story, but it's that one when we were at Longgrain doing the one-on-one chat, and there was a question that came from a very large retailer. I'm not gonna name names. They were like, "How much do you spend? How much does Culture Kings really do? How much do you really spend on ads?" And Daniel just goes, 500. And then this guy goes, "A year?" And Daniel was like, "A week?" And everyone was just like, "Wait, what did you just say?"
Wait, 500 what?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You've got to put that in context though. Simon built the digital component of that brand because he was so ahead of the game in content being used to drive acquisition and awareness through ads. He just had it dialed. And so the business was very fortunate that not only was it a big spender, it was very profitable. And I think the one thing he did that I've still not seen another organisation do is they looked at return on ad spend from a gross profit perspective, not from a revenue perspective. And so everyone that worked at Culture Kings almost felt like a bit of a shareholder because their mindset was always profit, EBIT, not revenue. And I think having that really drilled into me, because I'd never had that mindset before, that will stay with me forever. You know, it's no good to spend $1 and get $3 back. It's better if you spend $1 and you get $3 back in GP. So that really simple little pivot, I think, was one of my more significant learnings. And that's what allowed Culture Kings, I think, to continue to spend the way it did, because it was a multi-brand retailer motivated by gross profit, not by revenue. So it was looking at the right thing.
Yeah, interesting. And I think I really like what you said before when Hannah asked you about the shifts and the trends, because at the essence it's based on what the customer is doing.
Yeah.
So I think the brands that are really getting to understand the behaviors of their customers and what platforms they're interacting on, they're the ones that will win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I find if I love a brand, I will shop on its website no matter how bad it is.
Yes.
Yeah,
Some of the
it's
biggest brands on the planet have got the worst websites.
Yes.
But if you love the product and the brand, you're willing to fight for it. And so it's this concept of perceived value. And I truly believe that the website's job is just to let people find the product quickly and then check out.
Yeah.
And, you know, thank God Culture Kings introduced me to Shopify, because that's what Shopify does. Makes it really easy to put a product up, deals with all the checkout stress. So that was a key learning for me too, because I'd always kind of been a tech-first mindset. And so I found myself in this role where, actually, I don't need to really worry about tech that much because it's so reliable. So I really had to learn about the content piece and the performance piece. And I stopped worrying about A/B tests driving 0.01% uplift. And if I change this from a black to a blue button, like I get that. And
Yeah.
I do believe there is a place for that. Probably on something like Amazon that's got however million sessions a day. Those little changes will be significant dollars. But for the majority of businesses, the amount of time it takes you to do, that small multivariate test, it'd be better to give someone an iPhone, send them in the car park, get some content, put in a Facebook ad. They're going to see more return on it. So
Very true.
that was a huge shift for me, which was quite unnerving because I'd always been the guy that was confident in the tech decisions, which when I say tech, I wasn't born and bred in tech, but understanding how to get what the customer needs out of the tech potentially is where I was confident, how to build, a great taxonomy or a really good structured navigation on the basis of data. Like they were things I was really confident with coming from a finance background. I was good with big data sets and, to leave all that behind and instantly jump into content was just so exciting, but so nerve-wracking at the same time.
Funny you say about website experiences. I was shopping on Apple. Have you guys shopped off your mobile on Apple? Like it was really bad. No offense, Apple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was trying to compare. I don't want to say what product because it's a gift for my daughter who's in the studio today. But I was trying to compare the prices. And just the mobile experience was so bad. I couldn't compare functionality, prices. It was like not gridded properly. It was, so I was
find
like,
that so
Apple.
interesting
But I'm
because
not going to stop, not buy from Apple. Like I still need that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're a perfect brand in that they don't even need to necessarily, like the demand for that product is so significant that they could probably spend not $1 on marketing and it would still be
Exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting.
$1 trillion brand. So
That's it.
And that's that perceived value point I was making before, that as soon as customers have got that emotional connection to your product, you're off to the races.
Yeah. I still think that they're, in terms of like what the future will bring, Miss Futurist coming out here, I still think there's a long way to go between the intersection of content and commerce. I think that there's going to be a trend that is, I see content and I purchase almost immediately, no matter where I see the content.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is, I think there's a long way to go in that perspective. So if you understand the fundamentals of what drives that and how the technology can support that, you're going to put yourself in a good position.
I agree. I think the main friction point is that kids spend the majority of their time, and when I say kids, I guess I'm trying to collectively refer to
Gen
the
Z.
majority of people that spend money online, or the majority of people
Anyone
I've
younger
been
than you.
responsible for marketing to. When they've got their I'm in entertainment mode hat on, selling to them is difficult no matter what. And I think TikTok's a perfect example. TikTok Shop is starting to really get some traction in the US, and that will give people the ability to one button shop. But if they're on there to kill some time, they're on the toilet, they're waiting for an appointment, it's more about the mindset they're in. They're more in a, I just want to kill some time as opposed to shop. So I think it's yes, it's about the tech, but I think it's more about people accepting that commerce happening within entertainment is a natural thing, as where, the real current push is I'm in entertainment mode or I'm in shopping mode. I think the tech will be able to absolutely support the two happening at once. It's just whether or not people want that.
I mean, we shall see. We shall see.
Time will tell.
Let's take a little bit of a pivot and talk about, I guess, again, drawing on the themes of you've worked for founder-led brands.
Yep.
You've also worked for not founder-led brands. What's your experience in dealing with both?
Such a good question. And I think about this all the time because obviously when I made the jump to Surf Stitch, I didn't realize I was going to work at a founder-led brand because that was a concept that just didn't make sense to me. I don't even necessarily know if founder-led businesses were a huge thing in my mind at all at that point in time. I shopped at General Pants, but I never thought who owned it. I watched telly, but I never thought who owned the network stations. Like just that idea of founder-led was not even a thing to me. But I still remember my first day there, and the other co-founder sent me a text and was like, before you go into the office, let's go and grab coffee. And I can remember sitting there having coffee with him and seeing the other staff's reaction to me just sitting with the boss. And it was like this moment where I realized, oh my God, like these guys are godlike. Like they're these special creatures that exist in a different atmosphere to us.
Yeah.
And I'd had that experience with senior leaders in other roles, but I had never fully grasped the gravity of this person created something from scratch. And every single leader has been completely different. Sir Stitch was so unique in it had two founders and they themselves could not have been more different. Justin was the charismatic investment banker who was trying to predict the future. And then Lex Pedersen was this exceptional surf industry mind who had this great relationship with all of the surf industry. And so they were two very different people, and I learnt a lot from them differently. Then I jumped to Billabong where, you know, it's a heritage brand, but the owner-founder, or not the owner rather, the founder is still very much part of the business in that they would invite Gordon Merchant to the annual meetings. He'd sit front row at the season ranges where they'd walk all the new products. So I had this really different view of what an owner-founder organisation can look like in 50 years' time. And I loved the fact that he was still there experiencing it front row. And then obviously you jump to Culture Kings. And what I learnt from Simon and Tani was similar to the Surf Stitch ride in that yin and yang is so important. And a lot of the owner-founder businesses that are doing really well now, if you poke and prod, there might be someone who's got more of a profile of the founder, but there's always someone almost right behind them or over their shoulder that's been the person that's kind of, you know, Tim Cook, Steve Jobs type of thing. And, you know, that's the thing I've learned is that if you don't have that energy and force to offset the incredible force of an owner-founder, things can kind of go too far down one road really quickly.
Yeah.
And I loved that about Culture Kings. You know, Tani would always, she was the only person that in a meeting could put Simon in his place instantly and say no. I mean, yes, she's also his wife, and you know she's very much the boss.
Yeah.
But just watching that dynamic, because you know he says this openly all the time. Like she stopped him making, you know, lots of mistakes that would have cost the organisation millions. But then there's times where Simon's decisions has obviously driven the business to great success. So that balance is amazing. And then where I find myself at the moment is really similar again in that Rachel, who's the owner-founder, has her sister and her brother, who are these other two exceptional people. And the three of them bring this great balance to the organisation. So, you know, no one knows brand and customer better than Rach. And then Emma, her sister, is this incredibly knowledgeable industry figurehead as well that supports Rach in the execution of lots of the fitness stuff. And then Liam, her brother, who's, I guess, the wheels and in the engine room behind CSB, who's really like pushing that down the road. So, yeah, they've all been so different, and I've been so grateful. And I didn't even realize I'd made this career out of working with owner founders.
Yeah.
You know, it can be exhausting at times because they've always got more energy than you.
Yeah.
And they've always got more passion than you, and they're always, but at the same time they've got more skin in the game. So it's them taking the risks, not you. So you're very lucky. I count myself very lucky to have worked with so many exceptional people.
I think they always push you to do better because they're so attached. It's their baby and they have a vision of what it should and can be. And so I feel like sometimes some things might never be good enough. They're like, no, you can do better. You can do better. Whether if you're a little bit further removed from the product, you might be like, yeah, okay, that will do.
Yeah.
But a founder will never be satisfied.
No, and look, but that's the reason why these brands are successful. And it's the reason why I work for them. Like, I go to bed every night just thinking, what's my idea? Like, I've learnt from all these amazing people. Like, why can't I think of something?
I do the same
And
thing.
all the time.
You know, I think sometimes I come to this point of realization that I'm so fortunate to work for them, and maybe that's my special power is working with owner founders and, you know, having thick enough skin to deal with that pressure you speak of. And they're always going to have more energy and passion than you, and that's always going to ideally bring out the best in you too.
Absolutely.
I think if you work in an organization where your boss is just a boss and doesn't have that skin in the game, they're never going to push themselves towards greatness because
Exactly.
it's someone further up than them that's really reaping the rewards rather. So I'm very lucky that not only have I worked for owner founders, I've reported directly into them. And I think that's also a distinction worth making, because the closer you get to them, you get pulled into their gravity, the greater your learnings, the greater the excitement,
Totally.
more hair pull out moments. But
The roller coaster continues.
yeah, but
But it's
never,
good.
never have I kind of because I'm quite an emotional leader, I guess, in the sense that I try and forge personal relationships with my staff, and I will sometimes navigate a conversation more emotionally than I should, because I'm quite passionate about an outcome, and hence why I learn so well from people like Justin Hilberg, who is actually now the CEO at Crop Shop Boutique, who was the CEO at Surf Stitch. So
Wow.
continue that working relationship. He's so good at, like, I'll send him this long email and he'll write back, "Noted, thanks." And my
Oh, one of those.
One
Are
of
you
those.
just like the one word?
but my thing is, that's actually all he needed to say.
Yeah.
And my thing is, if I needed more than that from my response, from my email, then I've actually gone into it with the wrong
Yes.
expectations, because
Yes.
for him, he receives that information. That's all he needs to share. And I love that, because it's like,
Yeah.
the more I can go into situations with the right expectations set, the better. And yeah, I've once again found myself surrounded by the people that I need to be around to get better at my craft.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about what you are doing now, Crop Shop Boutique. I stumbled across them a few months ago, served a couple of ads on Instagram. I bought activewear. I absolutely love it. It's my new favorite activewear brand.
You
so-
do. You talk about it all the time.
Yeah. I'm always posting about it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Talk to us about it. Very
So when I started at the group, the opportunity was general manager at Move With Us, which is the sister brand. And that was the, I guess, origin story of the group. Rachel, the owner founder, developed a product that perfectly aligned with just what she believed in and what she was doing in her life. And so she developed these exercise programs that allowed people to kind of come on the journey with her that she was following to be very successful professionally. And when you're somebody that's got a genuine connection with your community and you create a product that aligns with their value system, you're going to be successful. And so Move With Us exploded, and rightfully so, because they're a best-in-class product. COVID hit, people needing to work out from home through the roof. So Move With Us was on this steamroller ride. At some point in that ride, Rach made this decision that she didn't necessarily love the product available to her to wear when she was working out. So she started making her own. So same story again. She's got this reach, she's got this audience, and she's developed a product that authentically aligns with what she's doing. So if you're a Rach fan, you want to work out the way she does and you want to dress the way that she does. And so, Crop Shop Boutique slowly grew into, well, not slowly, very quickly grew into this behemoth that it is today.
Yeah.
And so my role was lucky enough to tap into the Crop Shop Boutique business for a period where it was growing so quick, and they were looking to establish, some structure to the team, because it was growing so quick. There are a lot of people doing a number of different roles. The team there is exceptional. And a good example would be you had the same girl responsible for emails and CRM and retention as you did for managing the performance agency relationship. So, over a period of months, we worked with her to kind of split that out and have a dedicated performance function and a dedicated retention function. So my role was really just, while at CSB, supporting Rach and Liam in, injecting that structure, kicking off a few process flows that spoke to performance marketing that might have not been in place previously. But really, they already knew they've got the best product mind in the industry. So they had the best product, they've got the best customers. So I didn't need to solve any of that or go near that at all. It was really just helping them on that marketing front. Rach was and continues to be the voice of brand in no one understands the customer better than her. So what the business didn't need was someone to come in and tell her to do brand. They really needed some capable people to come in and execute, start slowly identifying that vision. And as soon as those people were in the business, I was able to pull back and focus 100% of my time back on Move With Us. So we all sit in the same office. It's a very collaborative team in that we look for as many crossover opportunities as possible, like how can the Move With Us community benefit from CSB and how can the CSB community benefit from Move With Us. You would think they're very complementary products in that there'd be huge overlap. We don't necessarily see huge overlap.
Interesting.
Where we do see overlap, though, it's hyper engaged.
Yeah.
So the overlap group performs significantly better than where there is an overlap. But it's an incredibly exciting group to be a part of. CSB at the moment is going very aggressive at connecting with the community in pop-up retail activations, top tier influencer partnerships where they, create world-class product through that individual's network. And so they're on a hot streak, most definitely. And you touched on it before, the Hot Girl Walk. No one does the Hot Girl Walk better than CSB on the planet. Of that, I'm convinced. And Move With Us a little bit different in that it's more of a membership product.
Yeah.
And so our commitment is continually developing things to drive engagement within the app for our community. So, you shop once, but you'll only shop a second time if through that period you're a member with us, you're getting world-class experiences. So my role is, again, to support the amazing team there and figure out what are the different things that we can do to keep our community engaged. And that could be new coaches who have a unique way of training and a unique audience. It could be partnering with an incredible organisation like Journey Retreats to do a 120-girl retreat in Bali over 5-6 days where they get to connect with all of our coaches, learn about themselves, learn about fitness, learn about nutrition. Or it could just be as simple as filming incredible Pilates content with our amazing our Pilates coach, Lisa, to deliver in the app as a bonus extra free bit of content that you only get if you're a member. So we're really just focused on serving the existing community, sustainable acquisition where it makes sense. I think post-COVID acquisition should be viewed in a sustainable manner, i.e. we only want to acquire the customers that are likely to stay with us for 2 or 3 years, and we really want to support their journey through health and wellness to get them to a point where they're happier, healthier, fitter. They understand themselves and nutrition better. So we chase the people that have that need rather than just chase everybody. And I think that just develops this incredible sense of community within the team. And it's like you come to work not to serve them, but you come to work every day to think of new ways to excite and engage this incredibly passionate and empowered community. So I've never worked anywhere like that.
Yeah,
it's so community focused. It's quite, I feel myself when I talk about it, I lift up.
Which
is
nice.
Interesting. Working somewhere that you change your posture when you talk about them is special.
It's like a purpose-driven business, which is really nice.
I think you've touched on 2 key areas that we always talk about, right? Community and collaboration. Do you think that those 2 components are table stakes for e-commerce brands in this day and age, especially when you've got audiences that want to feel connected to a brand?
Yeah. And it's probably the easiest way to simplify it is if a brand has said audience and they're sitting over here and they want to attract more customers that either look like their existing audience, so in new markets, or they want to attract a new customer, it's a slow burn for them to do it. But if they identify a organisation or a brand or an individual with that audience already, there's no faster way to appeal to or attract a large group of people. And so I do believe genuinely that B2B, and when I say B2B, I include, large scale brand-driven influencers within that. I see those true brand influencers as being a brand rather than an influencer. I see those partnerships as the only way for brands to continue to see quite significant growth. If they're reliant on traditional marketing methods of lifting frequency from 2 to 2.1 by an extra email flow, growth is going to be gradual. So, I think they're critical.
That's so interesting, isn't it? And like I think you've simplified it and articulated it so well in terms of why both combined, collaborations and community, are incredibly important when we've got this market that we're in at the moment where cost of acquisition is also so high.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so like I think that's really good tips, and really anyone who's
I
listening
think
should be
there's
writing that down.
I think there's a shift too. Like I can remember 5 years ago, you would determine the value of a influencer based on the size of their followers, and there's no quicker way to send yourself bankrupt than spending money on influencers just because of the size of their following.
Yeah.
I've done partnerships with people with 1 million followers and not made $1 of direct attribution revenue.
That's
And then I've
crazy.
partnered with people that have got 50,000 followers,
Yeah.
and they've incrementally increased the size of the business.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got to partner with purpose
Yeah.
and
Partner with purpose.
and partner with passion, in that the value system of that person you partner with has to be aligned with the value system of your organization. And so I think I've almost learnt this from Rach better than anyone, in that she's had the opportunity to probably work with more brands than anyone I've ever come across. She would daily get different brands reaching out, and watching her say no to things is so empowering, because it's what you say no to that probably is a better reflection of your value structure than what you say yes to. And I think Move With Us and Crop Shop are perfect examples of do less better and partner with the right people rather than lots of people. Because your community, which is in my opinion, the engaged portion of your audience, your community doesn't want to see you change course for the sake of revenue.
Yeah.
And then they start feeling disconnected with your message. So once you've built a community, you've got to stay true to that community. So for us, it's slowly building that group of people through meaningful partnerships. And sometimes that meaningful partnership might throw a lot of people in, but you just want to make sure they're the same type of people. Otherwise you get this, I guess, friction within the community for what they're asking for or what's important to them. And that's when your product roadmap starts kind of
Start
shaking.
swerving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, we are going to move on to the next segment, which is our rapid questions to you. The first one, I actually looked up what TLDR means. It's ridiculous. So the first one is just have one final guess of what it means, or what it stands for.
Oh.
You can't do
It's,
it.
did you look it up too?
No, I
it's
didn't.
ridiculous. I can't believe it's a Shopify thing.
I mean, it's not something silly like a top level. I got no idea.
Yeah,
top
that-
level domain.
Oh no,
Top level.
no, it's worse. It's too long. Didn't read.
Oh.
Like
That's
I know. Are you
Yeah.
serious? Like it's so long that you can't even say the full
that's
words.
a really good learning, because I am, ask anyone I've ever worked with, the amount of times my emails have been this long and they could have been that long. So that is
You've
that
got to
is
do a
good point.
TLDR.
It's funny
You've got to
though.
do a
It's
TLDR
funny
at the
though.
beginning.
Yeah.
Like,
Too long
here are
to
the
read.
I
three
guess that's
things.
just expectation setting, right? Like, hey guys, what do we want to get out of this meeting?
But I also feel like the amount of effort and time that to say TLDR, you could say too long didn't read. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Or when you shorten names like Benny or Ben becomes Benny, and you're like,
Yeah.
hang on a second.
yeah.
Do you know what I've just realized is the amount of times that I've been in random conversations outside of work and I'm like, yep, so the TLDR of this is
Oh, so
XYZ.
you're
and
using it
people just,
wrongly
I'm
too.
using,
The too
Wow.
long didn't read.
Yeah,
of
like
this.
the
Imagine
TL
it's
didn't
behind
need-
your back.
so I've just gone and people must be looking at me like I'm some type of crazy, like, sorry, I'm just going to ignore what you just said in the beginning and just
Imagine
pay
the Slack
attention.
messages about you. Oh my God, Hannah said TLDR
TLDR.
again on
Yeah.
that call.
I do it all the time.
That's so good. I'm so glad we got that sorted. I was on my mind. Okay, now for the real fire question.
Okay.
What's your favorite holiday destination?
Anywhere with my wife. Yeah. Anywhere
Love
with my
that.
wife. We're still
Aw.
yet to go on a honeymoon.
What?
Yeah.
When
COVID,
did you get married?
The weekend that COVID hit.
Oh,
So we got married on the Saturday,
yeah.
and the Sunday was that wedding that was in the news where
Yes,
like 50
everyone was
people got
dancing.
COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And the bride and groom were on their honeymoon in the Maldives, getting all these messages about,
Yeah.
hey, everyone's got COVID.
Yeah.
So literally the world went into a lockdown the week after our wedding. And then I broke my back
Oh.
in lockdown surfing.
What?
And then
Broke
we built a
your
house
whole-
together.
Oh
And then we had a beautiful little baby boy. So it's like we've stacked the last 3
My
years.
Lord, how did you have a baby boy with a broken back? No, I'm joking.
Yep. Yeah. Look, I don't need to go into detail about being quite stationary and staying in the one spot.
No, that's incredible. You guys are definitely due for a honeymoon. And
Yeah.
congratulations on your son, the birth
Thank
of your
you
son.
very much.
How old
Yes.
is he now?
He's 18 months.
Aw.
He is more chaotic than any owner founder I've ever worked for.
Yes.
But he is beautiful. And I always say you shouldn't get into a relationship wanting to have kids. You should find somebody that you want to make a mini version of.
Yeah.
And I remember when I met my wife, I thought I would kill to have a mini version of you. And I'm so lucky I've got it. He's just absolutely beautiful.
That's
So,
very sweet. I love that.
Next rapid fire is favorite book.
I wish I read more. My wife teases me about this all the time. I don't read. And I think it's the phones
Yeah.
destroy it. I find myself scrolling, not reading, and I have to get better at reading.
Yeah.
Simon gave me a book. You'll forgive me for not remembering the author, but it was called Tell to Win. And I can almost guarantee it's still sitting in my backpack. And I've read the first 5 pages of it. But the first 5 pages were very good.
Very good. Tell to Win.
Yes.
Tell to
Yep.
Win. Okay.
Nice.
Look, I was on a potty with Simon a little while ago, and you can tell that that guy just absorbs information from books. So
Yeah.
any book recommendation that Simon is giving to you, I'm all for it.
Well, he hits the nail on the head when he says, turn what you're trying to learn about into a passion.
Yeah.
And because then it's not your learning, it's like you're trying to rip this thing apart, because if you don't know, it destroys your success plan. And
Yeah.
so I've got to learn that mindset, which is I'm not reading for the sake of
Yeah.
a task or education. I'm reading because this thing keeps me up at night if I don't know more about it. And I think learning that trick to click it,
Yeah.
you become unstoppable.
Yeah. That is actually such a good point. Something that I'm going through this mindset at the moment is there's so many things I want to do, but I've just got to focus on one and go really deep and becoming almost obsessive with
Yeah.
getting my head around the foundations of that one thing.
And I think too, it can become about, and he's simplified it as well, which is just block the time out. And so it could be as simple as 3 hours on Sunday night, I do this task every time. And again, I'm not saying I figured out how to do that, but most of the things that he's advised me on at some point after he's given that advice, I've tried it and I've been like, oh my God, I can't believe I could have been doing this whole time. And I think it's that strip it back to make it that simple.
Yeah.
What's a piece of advice that you have received that you have lived by?
Do something that makes you happy. And I know that sounds so corny, but I had a love for and a natural ability to be okay with numbers and data and hence finance banking, but it didn't have me on the couch with a smile on my face when I think about it. Surfing was the thing that brought me the most happiness. And so finding a way to shift into a job that joined data and surfing, bang.
I was in an Uber the other day, classic Uber, and this guy, and I feel like it's general chit chat in Uber, right? He's like, "Do you like your job?" I'm like, "I love my job. I
Yeah.
love the company I work for, and I love what I do." And he's like, "Wow, do you know what?" I asked that question to every single person, and he goes, "You're one of 2 people that have ever told me that
Wow.
Isn't that
they
scary?
love their job."
Sad,
Isn't
yeah.
that scary? That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Like you say it's corny, but like that piece of advice, but actually it's fundamentally true, and I think that more people need to live by that.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be hard because sometimes you don't have the luxury of doing something that you
Absolutely.
genuinely love, right?
And
Yeah.
that's where you can flip it to, I do this thing because it then allows me to do this thing
Yeah.
that I love. And
Yep.
I saw this the other day. I really want to get back into fitness. And he said, don't work out because you enjoy working out. Work out because it's going to make you a healthier father.
Yes.
And so it was the means to the end. So
Yep.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
And I think now in the world we live in is probably a time to be more aware of the situation others are in
Yeah,
and
exactly.
how your comments can come across insensitive. And so I know it's pretty easy to say, just do what you love. But it could be this sounds so silly, but I love mowing the lawn.
Mm.
Brings me great joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find those things. And it might
Absolutely.
not be that work is where you find that love. It might be the things that work lets you do. And it doesn't have to be money based either. Like jumping on my e-bike in the morning to take my son for a ride down the park is by far the number one part of my day. And doesn't cost a thing.
Yeah.
And I work so I have the ability to do that with him in the mornings.
Yeah.
And so I think, find something you love doesn't need to be professional.
Totally. And it's often a mindset shift. So if you change your mindset, like you said, like I am grateful to be able to have this job because it gives me the life that I'm able to provide for my family or for myself. And then that in turn will make you more grateful going into work every day.
Yeah, we can't all be Hannah's
No.
saying that you
True,
love what
yeah,
you
yeah.
do.
That's true.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are parts that I hate about my job, but
A very interesting world full of you, Hannah.
it's like
Next
no
question.
toxic positivity. So final one is person you look up to. Who's the person you look up to?
My wife.
Stop it.
Love
Out
that.
of the
She was
room.
the answer of 2 of your questions.
know.
Love that. What's your wife's name?
Her name is Marit.
Marit.
Hi, Marie.
Shout out to Marit. You sound lovely.
She pulled me out of my dirtbag 20s and turned me into a good dad and a good husband. So for that, I am forever grateful.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Okay. Next segment.
Yes.
And this is probably our personal favorite part of the segment because we review products, but from the perspective of we'll go through it, we'll have a little bit of a play around, but then we want you to give some advice to this brand. Now that can be in any way, like whether it's how you would think about marketing it, what you potentially might advise around the product, how you would create content around it, whatever it might be.
Okay.
Because I think that that's probably the most valuable thing that small brands in particular can take away.
Yep.
Comes, I'm going to get you to kind of go through ProPod.
Yes, so this is ProPod. It's female founded, Australian owned. It
I love
is, let me read the spiel on the website.
Can I look at and grab the box
Absolutely.
while you're reading?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Please open it up. Take them out.
So ProPod, ready to save time, boost results, and simplify your fitness goals? Meet your supplement's new best friend and your consistency buddy, ProPod. Embrace simplicity as we help you prep your supplements hassle-free, saving you valuable time and energy. Step into a world where supplement preparation is a breeze with ProPod. It empowers you to take control of your wellness journey with unparalleled convenience. There's a little bit on here. So say goodbye to the hassle and mess of traditional supplement preparation. With ProPod, you'll experience a seamless and efficient process from start to finish. So as you can see on the box of, what does it say? Scoop it, prep it, stack it, drop it, shake it, reuse it.
Yep.
So basically it's for when you want to prep your meals, prep your protein shakes, any supplements you have, you can put the supplements, the powder in there and chuck it straight into your protein shaker.
Yep.
Take it to work or whatever, and then just empty it, and you can keep that in there and shake your protein shaker with that in there.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
I actually haven't touched it yet.
I actually don't. I'm not a real protein gal, right? But I think the reason as to why I'm not is purely the fact that I don't like preparing it. Which almost
Preparing
seems
it?
well, as in like I just this would actually be really handy for me because it would mean I can prep the start of the week and just put everything in
I like
there
how it
and then
puts
go.
Sticks on the bottom there. You see? The lid? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So I don't have protein shakes outside of my house for that reason. I have protein shakes and smoothies all the time at home, but I find it a bit tedious to take it outside of the house unless I make it and take it with me. So I can see the value of this. And it's not only protein, right? Like sometimes I mix collagen powder with my greens powder with my protein powder
Mushroom powder.
and
yeah.
mushroom powder, of course.
I love my mushroom powder.
And then, so for me, I would put a few different things in here, chuck it in the shaker, take it.
yeah. I think products that focus on one thing but in application have got a much broader reach are really interesting. And so while this product is obviously focused on protein, I can just straight away see the article on news.com like mum hacks and
Yeah.
it being
actually.
used for so much more than protein. Like
That's true.
I go to work and if they don't have the Nutella that I want, how do I take it? Well, I scoop Nutella straight in this, and I can take my Nutella and my protein to work. So I think
True.
where these things are great, you could crack an egg and put it in. Like there are so many things above and beyond their primary marketing message, which I think makes a product really powerful because, yes, they'll have got laser focus on the fitness gym person who uses it for protein, but I can almost guarantee the people that end up buying these will use them for things a little bit broader than that. I love the color.
Yeah.
The color is so great for marketing.
Yeah.
There's so many great brands out there like July Luggage at the moment, just
Love
owning
July.
owning color
Yeah.
in products that traditionally don't have color. Like normally these things would be
Yep.
boring
Black,
and grey
white,
or
Exactly.
clear.
grey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the fact it's not clear because a lot of the stuff you put in them are ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
Yeah.
Keeping it a
True.
nice, pretty color means it's always going to look pretty wherever it is.
Yeah. I'm still stuck on the mum hacks part. I think that is actually such a good, like
You know, when you
potentially
see
good
those things
campaign.
like
Yes.
mums go crazy over $9 thing from Kmart
Yes.
and like someone's figured out this awesome little
Exactly.
Very true.
Or the
Like you can
Bunnings
see a
thing with
TikTok
the-
trend. Oh,
Is that yeah.
I've done a Bunnings viral hack before in that I made my coffee table from a Bunnings hack and it looks good
It does.
and it was $100
Yeah.
and it was amazing.
No,
but that
it's
is
very
all
good.
because of a TikTok hack trend.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think the what'll be interesting is how much they want to hang on the recycled point because the first thing I thought when I looked at it was whenever I see packaging like this, I just assume a big part of the brand's ethos is sustainability,
Yeah.
recycled. So like knowing if it's just the packaging that's gone down that path or is the brand itself trying to say we're recycling plastic, we're
Yes.
taking plastic out of landfills or understanding if that's important to them is super exciting. But I think they're great for Secret Santa because I think something
Yeah.
this size, and I don't know the cost, but I'm assuming it would probably be within a Secret Santa budget. This would be a no-brainer present for someone that was kind of fit without having to be super fit and they'd use it.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that kind of Christmas birthday gifting thing would be huge for these guys because budget-wise it'll appeal to most people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in the specs they do say recycled material, and
Beautiful.
it's $44.95.
And this would be such a genuine fit in the influencer market because you could see somebody use this once and then it's probably unlikely that they'll work with a different brand doing exactly the same thing a week later. So they'd almost have this assumed authenticity. I hate it when you see somebody work with one brand and then 3 days later they're working with the direct competitor and they're
Exactly.
like, shop my code, like me12.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, I love it. It's my favorite top ever. Shop me13. It's
Yeah.
like, you just were promoting their competitor a
Exactly.
week ago.
Exactly.
Like, how authentic is the connection to your
Yeah.
community?
Yeah.
Really, if you're trying to sell them different brands all the time. So
Exactly.
that's something I kind of want to spearhead in the industry is stop spending so much money on influencers just based on their audience size who
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
peddle 1,000 different brands.
Yeah,
It's not authentic and your community doesn't win.
exactly.
Yes.
So I think products like this would actually slide in quite neatly because, you know, these would be perfect for TikTok. You would be able to come up with a million
Yeah.
TikTok ideas
And all
with
the
this.
colors and the sounds that you can make.
Yeah.
with it, like. All
Oh my
that.
God,
Yeah.
this is
And kids too. Like
Yeah, it's
my
so
little boy
sensory
would go
friendly.
bananas
Yeah,
with this.
exactly.
guys. We're gonna do some some ASMR.
TD.
No, you need to. Yeah, like you could like mum hack. You could throw like baby food in this and
Yeah.
go to the park.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Or when it's washed out, you just give it to the kids on the floor and it becomes
Yeah.
their favorite toy.
Yeah.
I know.
These things have got some real applications.
Mum hacks. Mum
Yeah.
hacks.
Love it.
Anyway, love it. That's awesome. And hopefully ProPod will take some of that on.
Yeah.
sure they
Give us your feedback. Dan, it's been a pleasure. Always love chatting to you. I feel like we do the in-person tours all the time. So you and I have had many chats, but it's good to be able to share your knowledge with a wider audience. So
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on.
Hopefully I didn't ramble
Appreciate-
too much. I'm such a
No,
rambler.
very, very, every
Hannah will
word is
always
valuable.
ask me on
All valuable.
panels a question and then I'll get to the end of my answer and I'll look at it and she'll have this like look of fear on her face as if like she's saying,
quick.
You were actually supposed to say that Shopify now has this feature. And I've completely not said it. And then I've got to go, oh, I'm so sorry. What I actually meant to say was.
That keeps you really
5 hours
authentic.
later.
Yeah, but also
Sorry.
beauty of podcast, people can rewind, fast
I
forward,
know,
skip.
I
So we can ramble
it.
as much as
Oh,
we
I
want.
love
I
that.
know.
I love
It's the
that.
best.
Yeah.
You're dropping value bombs. You
Yeah.
dropped so many value bombs today. So
And I didn't even need to expose any reality TV stories either. To keep you
Oh, we
ladies
didn't get
entertained.
We
that.
will be putting it on our Instagram.
Yes.
Flashback.
Yeah.
The photos from
The
you.
microphones were definitely not on when we had that initial
Yeah, yeah.
conversation, right?
Well,
No,
yeah, we'll find out. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining
Thanks
us.
for having
And
me.
we'll catch up with you soon.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Are we dancing?
That was great. Yeah. We've got to do a little boogie.
These
So
could be
good.
maracas.
Yeah.
I know.
Could be anything.
Like,